According to law enforcement officials, this is typical of the process by which athletes get steroids. A sale at a local health club, this one in Denver, where steroid buyer meets steroid distributor. But this buyer is an undercover U.S. Customs agent, and this videotape is evidence against 6 people in Denver charged with smuggling steroids to Denver from Mexico. Denver bodybuilder Robert Shine was one of those arrested. He was charged with buying smuggled steroids.
Bad timing. I was there in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I was just buying for myself. I'm not distributing them, and they just got me.
The charges against Robert Shine eventually were dropped, but his arrest did not deter him from using steroids. Shine says none of the legal chemicals he used worked as well as steroids to build the muscles he needs to compete as a bodybuilder.
I gained 30 pounds in 9 weeks. Yeah, I put on some really good weight. And after I got off my cycle, I probably kept 15 of it. Probably 15 of it was water weight, I'm sure. But I did get some excellent gains, strength, size. Yeah, it was good.
Shine says finding steroids on the black market has never been a problem.
There was access to them everywhere. If you look like you were a serious competitor, guys that were selling them would come up to you and say, hey, do you know anybody, or do you use them yourself? I can get them for you.
2 weeks ago, a 16-year-old kid come up to me and started asking me questions about how I train and what I do, and then began talking about steroids. I asked him if he was on them or if he'd used them, and he was on them at the time I asked him. And it blows my mind to hear that teenagers at this age are using steroids. It's going to be an epidemic, a terrible thing for the teenagers.
Steroids can be used legally as healing aids and only when prescribed by a doctor. But athletes and scientists agree the drugs work to build muscle when combined with vigorous exercise. The desire for bigger, more muscular bodies has created a $100 million a year business in illegal steroids. Users include everyone from world-class athletes to junior high school football players. U.S. Attorney Mike Norton's office will prosecute the steroid smuggling case in Denver.
These are violations of federal criminal code, and it's my duty and responsibility to enforce them. In a sense, we serve as the conscience of the community. The community is outraged at the drug problem in our society. Steroids is a part of that problem, and it is appropriate and indeed, I think, mandatory for us to do our duty in that regard.
If some parts of society oppose steroids as part of a larger drug abuse problem, others place a higher value on strong bodies. At Gold's Gym, just outside Denver, the desire to build a muscular body is demonstrated every day. Gym owner Kent Border says professional athletes and bodybuilders aren't the only ones who use steroids.
Some of them never intend to compete in any way, shape, or form, be that powerlifting or building their bodies, whatever. They don't intend to compete. But they're interested in looking good. It means so much to them to walk into a restaurant and be noticed, or to get out of their car to buy gas and be noticed, or to go to a bar or a nightclub and be, the biggest, toughest, meanest looking dude there, or whatever.
Come on, stretch them out, stretch that quad.
Perhaps most disturbing to opponents of steroid use are reports the drugs are used by young people in high school, even junior high school. The man charged with operating the alleged steroid smuggling ring in Denver was a part-time physical education teacher at this and other Denver area high schools. Federal authorities say they are sure the group sold steroids to high school students, possibly here at Adams City High.
There you go, there you go.
Adams City football coach Wes Raisler says his team is free of steroids, but he worries about steroid use among students who aren't involved in organized sports.
We really have to worry about the high school student that comes down, lifts weights and does some exercising for an hour, and then spends another 2-3 hours there after school, and we have the weight room open. And this young man doesn't even plan on playing any sports. All he really wants to do is look good to his peers, to his girlfriend.
Coach Raisler says he works hard to discourage use among his players, but team members admit the steroid shortcut is tempting.
You want to be big, you want to be huge. I mean, it's just like, oh, I don't know,
just
women like you more.
It so rapidly, and you know, you don't have to work as hard, it seems like. It's just there, you know, you only have to do it for such a little time, and you're built up into, you know, a rock.
High school athletes say they are lured to use steroids in part because they know professional football players use the drugs. At the Denver Broncos training facility, lineman Greg Cragen claimed few, if any, of his teammates use steroids. But Cragen says steroid use is common throughout the National Football League.
It's really hard to say an exact percentage, but it's sometimes you can look at guys and just really tell the way they're ballooned up, that type of thing. And if you see in a case where they've gained 30, 40 pounds over, say, a year or two, it's really obvious sometimes.
After tests last summer, the National Football League said only 6% of players tested positive for steroids. Some players say closer to 50% use steroids. Next year, players who test positive for steroids will be subject to the same penalties as players found to use cocaine or amphetamines, suspension and possibly banishment from the league. High school coach Raisler says a crackdown in the professional ranks will help him discourage his young athletes from using steroids.
If the NFL is going to stop or test these people so that they can't take anabolic steroids, and that these young kids can see that, hey, there's no sense in taking it, because if you work hard, you do have a chance of making it, and do it the fair way, I guess you'd want to say. And I think it's going to help everybody at every level.
But pro players, including Denver lineman Cragen, suggest steroid use may be too rampant for the NFL ban to work.
So many of the big people could be gone from the game if that's what they decide to do. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
But the steroid controversy involves more than athletes gaining a physical advantage through drugs. For years, coaches and others throughout sport have preached against steroid use on the grounds the drugs cause long-term health damage to users. Athletes are told steroids harm the liver and kidneys, lead to heart disease, sterility. But while permanent physical changes in women and stunted growth in children who use steroids have been documented, long-term health problems in men haven't been proven. Dr. Charles Yasalis says the scientific community risks losing credibility with athletes when it overstates the health risks of steroid use.
People who are saying that we know these drugs cause liver cancer, and we know that they cause sterility, and we know they cause heart disease. I'm just saying, based on the data we have, that they're overspeaking.
It is accepted that steroid use can cause psychological problems, perhaps even psychological addiction. Many steroid users report becoming more aggressive when using the drugs. That was the experience of Rick Perea, who used steroids when he played pro football. Perea says he stopped using steroids last spring. He says the drugs made him so aggressive, he once chased down a driver who cut him off in traffic.
I chased her in my car, and with not even thinking of the end result. What am I going to do when I catch her? Am I going to hurt her? What am I going to do? I wasn't even thinking of it. I was just thinking, she confronted me, she challenged me, she will not win. I will win. There's no doubt in my mind, not whatsoever, that the steroids were the reason that made me go into these rages that were uncontrollable.
Would you agree with those who say that steroids do make a person more aggressive?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they sure do. You learn to control that too. You know, I've felt like I could have done that many a times, just gotten really teed off for nothing, but I control it. You learn to control it.
Of the large number of people I've talked to that have used the drug, the large majority report increased feelings of aggressiveness. I've actually talked to some people and say, you know, I get so mad that I rip somebody's head off.
Don't you have a problem in keeping young people away from these drugs when you cannot prove, finally, that they're actually damaging themselves?
Yeah, it bothers me. But what can you do? What can you do to speed up the process so we can do these studies, so we can get some concrete evidence that it does harm the liver or the heart? I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that question, and then maybe we could make a faster assault on this problem of steroids.
Steroid opponents hoped the Olympic disqualification of sprinter Ben Johnson for steroid use would discourage people from using steroids. Ironically, the Johnson scandal may have had the opposite effect. Gym owner Kent Border.
The day after Johnson was busted, I think we had 6 phone calls. How can that be? 6 phone calls asking if they could get drugs here. It's not very logical, is it?
What does that say to you?
People are prepared to pay almost any price for notoriety, for fame, for whatever. Any price.
If it could be proven that, say, if you did steroids for 3 or 4 years, you definitely would have impaired liver function, that your risk of heart attack would go way up, would you then stop using steroids?
I think so. I think so. In fact, I would. Yeah. That's scary. You know, a heart attack. I sure wouldn't want to be driving down the street and my heart stop on me. No. But I have never heard of anybody having a heart attack or having these kind of damages to themselves. Until they can prove it, I'm going to have to say I'm going to take them, as long as I have access to them.
Robert Shine says he would like to be able to use steroids legally and under a doctor's supervision. For now, Shine and some of the 500,000 to 1 million steroid users in this country seem to believe the benefits of taking steroids outweigh the risks.